Dr. Sarah Chen floated through the bright corridors of the hospital ship, Mercy's Light. Her white medical coat drifted behind her in the low-gravity section, where the most serious patients stayed. The red cross on her shoulder patch caught the light as she moved from room to room. The ship was huge. 3 miles long and half a mile wide, it held 20,000 beds. Every bed was full today. The war in the Kepler 442 system had been going on for 6 months, and the wounded kept coming. Sarah stopped at bed 4431. A young Zephyrian warrior lay there, his crystal body cracked down the middle. These crystal people were ancient. They had been traveling between stars when humans still lived in caves. But today this warrior looked like a broken window. "How is the pain?" Sarah asked softly. The Zephyrian's voice sounded like wind chimes. "Better, human doctor. Your medicines work well." Sarah smiled and checked his chart. The Zephyrians had been suspicious of human medicine at first. Their crystal bodies worked differently from human flesh, but human doctors had learned quickly. They always did. In the next bed lay a Kalari drone. The bug-like creature was missing 3 of its 6 arms. The Kalari were a hive mind. Every drone was connected to their queen and all other drones. They shared thoughts like humans shared air. "The collective thanks you." The drone clicked in its strange voice. "This unit will return to service soon." Sarah nodded and moved on. Across the corridor, human soldiers lay beside Vorac prisoners. This would shock most species. Humans treated their enemies with the same care as their friends. Other species called this weakness. Humans called it being civilized. The Vorac prisoner in bed 4140 watched Sarah with red eyes. His gray skin was covered in burns from plasma weapons. He was a big creature, nearly 8 feet tall even lying down. The Vorac Empire had been fighting the Coalition for 10 years. They believed only the strong deserved to live. "Why do you heal me, soft one?" the Vorac growled. "I would kill you if I could stand." Sarah checked his bandages. "Because you're hurt. That's all I need to know." The alien laughed, a harsh sound. "Your species is weak. This is why we will win." Sarah said nothing. She had heard this before. Many aliens thought humans were weak because they showed mercy. They did not understand that mercy was a choice, not weakness. Captain Torres found Sarah in the medical bay 2 hours later. He was the ship's commanding officer, a veteran of 12 years in the Coalition Navy. His face looked worried. "Doctor, we need to talk," Torres said. They walked to the observation deck. Through the massive windows they could see the battle raging in space. Coalition ships fought against the Vorac fleet. Blue and red laser beams cut through the darkness. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. "Intelligence reports a big Vorac push coming," Torres said. "Their whole fleet is moving this way. We might need to evacuate." Sarah shook her head. "We can't move the critical patients. Moving them would kill them." "Better some die than all die," Torres replied. "No," Sarah said firmly. "We stay. We're a medical ship. We're protected by galactic law. The Red Cross means something." Torres looked at the red cross painted on the ship's hull. It was huge, visible from miles away. The symbol was older than space travel. It had protected doctors and nurses for over 500 years. Even in the worst wars, even the most brutal enemies respected the Red Cross. "I hope you're right, Doctor," Torres said. The attack came 6 hours later. Sarah was treating a wounded Kalari drone when the first alarm sounded. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the ship. The voice of the communications officer echoed through the corridors. "All medical staff to emergency stations. Unknown ships approaching. Medical sanctuary codes are being broadcast." Sarah finished bandaging the drone and hurried to the command center. The main screen showed dozens of Vorac ships approaching. They were big, angular vessels covered in weapons. They looked like flying knives. "Are they responding to our medical codes?" Sarah asked. "Negative," the communications officer replied. "No response to any hails." Captain Torres stood at the center of the room. His hands were clenched behind his back. "Continue broadcasting. They have to acknowledge medical sanctuary. It's galactic law." On the screen, a massive Vorac dreadnought moved closer. It was 3 times the size of the Mercy's Light. Weapons covered its hull like metal teeth. Sarah had never seen a ship so built for destruction. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. The screen changed to show a Vorac commander. His red eyes glowed with hate. Scars covered his gray face. This was Commander Thexnal, one of the Empire's most feared leaders. "Human vessel," Thexnal growled. "You carry Coalition wounded. You aid our enemies. Captain Torres stepped forward. This is a medical vessel under the protection of the Red Cross. We treat all wounded regardless of species or allegiance. This is recognized by all members of the galactic community. Thexnol laughed. Your soft human laws mean nothing to us. You heal our enemies so they can fight us again. This ends now. Commander, you can't attack a medical ship, Torres said. It's against every law of war. I make my own laws, Thexnol replied. The transmission ended. Silence filled the command center. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Throughout galactic history, no one had ever attacked a medical ship. It was unthinkable. Even the most brutal species respected medical neutrality. Sir, the weapons officer said quietly, their main guns are charging. Impossible, Torres whispered. Sarah felt cold fear in her stomach. All medical staff, she said into the comm. Begin emergency evacuation of critical patients. But there was no time. The Vorac dreadnought fired. Plasma beams tore through the Mercy's Light's unshielded hull. The ship had no weapons, no armor. It was built to save lives, not fight wars. The beams cut through it like a knife through paper. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, casting everything in red light. The ship shuddered and began to break apart. Sarah heard screaming from the medical bays. Patients who couldn't move were trapped in their beds. Hull breaches on all decks, someone shouted. Sarah ran toward the medical bays. She had to save who she could. Behind her, the command center filled with smoke. Ahead of her, she could hear the sound of tearing metal. She reached Medical Bay 7 just as the hull split open. 20 patients were sucked into space in seconds. She grabbed onto a support beam and watched helplessly as beds and bodies tumbled into the void. A Zephyrian warrior floated past her, his crystal body already dead from the cold of space. Next to him drifted a human nurse, her Red Cross armband the last thing Sarah saw before the darkness took them. The Mercy's Light died in 7 minutes. Captain Torres managed to get word out before the ship broke apart completely. The message was simple. Medical vessel under attack. Red Cross compromised, all hands lost. Sarah found herself in an escape pod with 12 survivors. Through the small window, she watched the debris field that had once been her ship. Bodies floated among the wreckage. Human, Zephyrian, Kalari. Even some Vorac prisoners who had been receiving treatment. 2,847 souls, all dead because someone had fired on the Red Cross. In the distance, the Vorac fleet moved on toward their next target. Commander Thexnol probably thought he had won a great victory. He had no idea what he had just unleashed. Sarah closed her eyes and tried not to think about what came next. The Red Cross had been fired upon. That changed everything. The rescue ship found them 6 hours later. By then, news of the attack had reached every coalition world. By then, Earth knew what had happened. By then, it was too late for the Vorac Empire, they just didn't know it yet. Commander Thexnol stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, Blood of Empire. The battle raged around him, but his attention was fixed on the coalition medical ship in the distance. The white vessel gleamed against the black of space, marked with the ancient Red Cross symbol. Commander, his weapons officer said, the medical ship is requesting safe passage. They are broadcasting sanctuary codes. Thexnol's red eyes narrowed. He had been fighting the coalition for 5 years. Every time his warriors were wounded, they died. The Vorac Empire did not waste resources on the weak, but the coalition always rescued their wounded. They patched them up and sent them back to fight. How many coalition wounded are aboard that ship? He asked. Sensors show approximately 15,000, sir. Mixed species. Zephyrians, Kalari, humans. 15,000 enemy soldiers who would live to fight another day. 15,000 warriors who should have died honorably in battle. Thexnol's claws scraped against his command chair. Sir, they also show nearly 3,000 of our own people aboard. The sensor officer added quietly. Thexnol turned sharply. Our people? Prisoners of war, sir. Being treated for their wounds. This made Thexnol even angrier. The humans were healing Vorac warriors. They were showing mercy to soldiers of the Empire. This was an insult. Vorac warriors did not need the pity of soft alien species. Commander, his communications officer said, we are receiving a direct transmission from the medical ship. Put it through. The screen showed a human captain. He was small and weak-looking like all humans. His uniform was clean and pressed. No scars marked his face. Thexnol despised him immediately. This is Captain Torres of the hospital ship Mercy's Light, the human said. We are operating under medical sanctuary as recognized by all galactic species. We carry wounded from all sides of this conflict. I see your cargo, human, Thexnall replied. You heal my enemies so they can kill more of my people. We heal all wounded without regard to species or allegiance. This is the law of AU. I know your laws, Thexnall cut him off. Soft laws made by soft species. The Empire recognizes only one law. The strong survive, the weak perish. Captain Torres looked confused. Commander, medical ships have been protected for centuries. Even during the Zephyrian Wars, even during the Kalari expansion. No military force has ever attacked a medical vessel. Then I will be the first. Thexnall could see the fear in the human's eyes. Good. Fear was honest. Fear was real. Not like the false mercy these creatures showed. You can't be serious, Torres said. There are nearly 20,000 patients aboard this ship. Innocent wounded who cannot fight. There are no innocents in war, Thexnall growled. Only enemies and allies. You have chosen to be my enemy. He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Target their main hull. Prepare to fire, sir. The weapons officer hesitated. Are you certain? They are a medical vessel. Our own people are aboard. Thexnall's hand moved to his sidearm. Are you questioning my orders? No, sir. Targeting now. Around the bridge, other officers watched in silence. Some looked uncomfortable. In the Empire's long history, they had never fired on a medical ship. It went against something deep and basic. Even the most brutal Vorthak commanders had always respected medical neutrality. But Thexnall was different. He had risen to power by being more ruthless than anyone else. He had burned worlds and enslaved entire species. One hospital ship would not stop him from winning this war. Sir, the communications officer said quietly, we are receiving urgent messages from our allies. The Krex fleet is requesting clarification of our intentions. Even the Empire's allies were concerned. The Krex were almost as brutal as the Vorthak, but they had never attacked medical vessels either. Tell them we are eliminating a military target, Thexnall ordered. But sir, it's clearly marked ASO. It carries enemy soldiers. That makes it a military target. The weapons officer looked up from his console. Main plasma batteries charged and ready, sir. Thexnall stared at the hospital ship. It hung in space like a bright star, unmoving and undefended. No shields protected it. No weapons aimed back at him. It was completely helpless, perfect fire. The order echoed across the bridge. For a moment, nobody moved. Then training took over. The weapons officer pressed the firing controls. 6 massive plasma beams erupted from the dreadnought's main guns. They crossed the distance to the medical ship in seconds. The beams were designed to punch through heavy battle armor. The hospital ship had no armor at all. The first beam tore through the ship's bow, vaporizing the main medical bay instantly. 3,000 patients died in that first second. The second beam hit the ship's middle section, where the critical care units were located. The hull peeled open like fruit. Emergency lights flickered throughout the medical ship. Air and debris rushed out into space. Bodies followed the air, tumbling helplessly in the void. Human doctors, Zephyrian warriors, Kalari drones, Vorthak prisoners. Target the remaining sections, Thexnall ordered. Sir, they are trying to evacuate, the sensor officer reported. Then we stopped them from escaping. 4 more plasma beams struck the dying ship. The rear sections exploded in brilliant flashes. Escape pods that had just launched were caught in the blasts. They vanished in balls of fire. The bridge of the Blood of Empire was silent except for the hum of machinery. Officers stared at their screens in shock. On the main viewer, the hospital ship came apart like a broken toy. Pieces of hull drifted away, glowing with heat. Debris field analysis shows total destruction, the sensor officer reported in a quiet voice. No life signs detected. Thexnall nodded with satisfaction. How many enemy wounded were eliminated? Approximately. All of them, sir. Plus our own prisoners and the medical staff. Acceptable losses, Thexnall said, but even he felt something strange in his chest. The death of his own people bothered him more than he expected. Sir, the communications officer said urgently, we are receiving transmissions from across the system. All coalition forces are repeating the same message. What message? Medical vessel under attack. Red Cross compromised. All hands lost. Thexnall waved dismissively. Coalition propaganda. They want to make us look like monsters. But around the bridge, his officers exchanged glances. They had just fired on a medical ship. They had killed doctors and nurses and wounded soldiers who could not fight back. Maybe they were monsters. "Commander," the weapons officer said slowly, "should we pursue the remaining Coalition fleet?" Thexnell looked at the tactical display. The Coalition ships were retreating. They had been winning the battle before the hospital ship was destroyed. Now they were running like scared animals. No, he decided. Let them run. Let them tell their leaders what happens when they oppose the Empire. Fear is a weapon, too. The Vorac fleet regrouped and moved toward their next target. Behind them, the debris field of the Mercy's light spread slowly through space. Bodies and medical equipment drifted in the darkness. On distant Coalition worlds, the news spread quickly. A medical ship had been destroyed. The Red Cross had been fired upon. Nearly 3,000 souls were dead, including doctors and nurses who had dedicated their lives to healing. The reaction was immediate and universal. Shock, horror, disbelief. No one had ever attacked a medical vessel before. It violated every law of war, every code of honor, every basic principle of civilization, but the strongest reaction came from Earth. The humans were very quiet. Thexnell would have been worried if he had known about the silence. The humans had fought in the Coalition for over a century. They were known for their emotional speeches when something upset them. They protested loudly. They demanded justice with passionate words. This time they said nothing at all. That should have terrified him. Instead, Thexnell celebrated his victory. He had shown the Coalition that nothing was sacred. No symbol would protect them. No law would save them. Only strength mattered. He had no idea that he had just made the worst mistake in the history of the Vorac Empire. The humans were quiet because they were thinking, and when humans thought about war, terrible things happened. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez stood in the command center of Earth's strategic headquarters. Around him, officers worked at their stations in complete silence. No one spoke unless absolutely necessary. The only sounds were the soft beeping of computers and the whisper of air circulation. On the main screen, a recording played for the 15th time. The destruction of the Mercy's light unfolded in terrible detail. Plasma beams tearing through the unshielded hull, bodies tumbling into space, the Red Cross symbol disappearing in a ball of fire. "How many survivors?" Rodriguez asked quietly. 17, sir," replied Colonel Chen, his aide. "Dr. Sarah Chen is among them. She's being treated at Station Bravo." Rodriguez nodded. 17 out of nearly 3,000. The worst loss of medical personnel in human history. But it was not just the numbers that made this different. It was what the loss meant. "Has the president made a statement?" Rodriguez asked. "Yes, sir." One sentence. "The Red Cross has been fired upon. We are reconsidering our approach to this conflict." Around the command center, other officers had stopped their work to listen. They had all seen the recording. They all understood what had happened. Someone had crossed a line that should never be crossed. "What about the other Coalition species?" Rodriguez asked. "The Zephyrians are demanding immediate action. Their crystal forms are flickering with anger. The Kolari hive mind is disturbed. They keep sending messages asking what humans plan to do." Rodriguez walked to the large window overlooking Earth. Below, he could see the lights of cities stretching to the horizon. 3 billion humans lived on this world. Billions more lived on colonies throughout human space. They were all waiting for Earth's response. "And what do we plan to do, Colonel?" "I don't know, sir. That's above my pay grade." Rodriguez smiled slightly. It was the first smile anyone had seen from him in 6 hours. "Above mine too, Colonel. But I think we're about to find out," his communicator chimed. The presidential seal appeared on the small screen. "Admiral Rodriguez, report to the executive building immediately." "On my way, sir." The executive building sat in the heart of Geneva, overlooking Lake Geneva. It had been the center of Earth's government for 200 years. Rodriguez had been there many times, but today felt different. Today the guard stood straighter. Today the hallways seemed quieter. President Sarah Kim waited in the Oval Office with 3 other people. Rodriguez recognized them all. Director Wilson from Intelligence, General Zhang from Strategic Planning, and Dr. Elizabeth Hawthorne from the Luna Project. "Sit down, Marcus," the president said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. "We need to discuss our response. Madam President, the Coalition is expecting us to demand justice through proper channels. Rodriguez began. Fuck proper channels, President Kim said quietly. The profanity was shocking coming from her. She never swore in public. They fired on the Red Cross, Marcus. Do you understand what that means? Yes, ma'am. It means they don't respect the laws of war. It means they don't understand us at all, Director Wilson interjected. For 300 years we've been the nice guys. We heal their wounded. We protect their civilians. We follow their rules. And they think that makes us weak. General Zhang leaned forward. Our allies are confused by our reaction. They expected angry speeches, demands for sanctions. Instead, we've gone quiet. They're starting to worry. Good, President Kim said. Let them worry. Dr. Hawthorne, what's the status of the Luna project? Dr. Hawthorne consulted her tablet. All facilities are operational. We can begin full production immediately. The new technologies are ready for deployment. Rodriguez frowned. He knew about the Luna project, but only the basics. It was classified above his security level. Madam President, what exactly is the Luna project? President Kim and Dr. Hawthorne exchanged glances. Tell him, the president said. Dr. Hawthorne took a deep breath. Admiral, what do you know about humanity's technological development over the past century? We've made steady advances. Better weapons, faster ships, improved communications. That's what we've shown the galaxy, Dr. Hawthorne said. But we've been working on other things. Secret things. Things that would frighten our allies if they knew about them. Rodriguez felt a chill. What kind of things? Reality manipulation, Dr. Hawthorne said simply. Dimensional folding. Space-time alteration. We originally developed the technology for terraforming dangerous worlds, but the applications are broader. How much broader? General Zhang answered. We can make objects disappear from normal space. We can trap them in pocket dimensions. We can fold space to move massive distances instantly. We can alter the flow of time in localized areas. Rodriguez stared at them. That's impossible. 5 years ago, yes. Today, no. The Luna facilities have been perfecting these technologies. We told everyone we were building medical equipment and terraforming tools. That wasn't entirely a lie, but we were building other things too. President Kim stood and walked to the window. Marcus, why do you think humanity has been so peaceful? So merciful? So willing to follow everyone else's rules? Because it's the right thing to do? That's part of it. But the real reason is that we've been terrified of ourselves. We've seen what humans can do when we decide to be monsters. We've spent centuries learning to be better, to be kind, to show mercy even to our enemies. She turned back to face him. But someone just fired on the Red Cross. They killed our doctors and nurses. They murdered wounded soldiers who couldn't fight back. They've shown us that mercy is seen as weakness. Director Wilson opened a secure folder. Admiral, we're implementing the Lazarus Protocol. Rodriguez had never heard of it. What's that? The plan we hoped we'd never need, President Kim said. We're going to show the galaxy what humanity is capable of when we're not trying to be the good guys. Dr. Hawthorne stood. I need to return to Luna immediately. We'll need all production facilities online within 72 hours. What exactly are we producing? Rodriguez asked. Justice, President Kim said simply. Over the next 3 days, strange things began happening throughout human space. Medical ships returned to Earth without explanation. Hospital stations powered down their transmitters. The Luna facilities went completely dark, their communication arrays shutting down one by one. Other coalition species grew nervous. Zephyrian ambassadors requested meetings that were politely declined. Kalari drones reported that they could no longer sense human emotional patterns. Something was changing, but no one knew what. On the third day, Admiral Rodriguez received new orders. He was to take command of the human expeditionary fleet. His mission was classified, but he knew where they were going. The Vorac Empire had made their position clear. Now humanity would make theirs. Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution as the human fleet assembled. 50 ships in total. They looked like standard coalition vessels, but Rodriguez knew better. These ships carried technologies that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Admiral, his communications officer reported. All ships ready for departure. Take us out, Rodriguez ordered. As the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, Earth's moon completed its transformation. The last communication arrays shut down. The last lights went out. From space, Luna looked dead, dark, silent. The other coalition species watched in growing alarm. They sent urgent messages to Earth asking what was happening. The responses were always the same: short, polite, meaningless. Humanity is reconsidering its approach to the current conflict. We are implementing new strategic initiatives. Thank you for your concern. We will contact you when appropriate. On Zephyria Prime, the Crystal Council met in emergency session. The humans have gone dark, the Elder Crystal reported. We can no longer read their intentions. This is troubling, another council member chimed. Humans are emotional, predictable. This silence is not human. On the Kalari homeworld, the Queen paced restlessly. Her billion-drone hive mind could sense the thoughts of most species across the galaxy. But human minds had always been partially closed to her. Now they were completely blank. They are planning something, the Queen whispered to herself. Something that requires absolute secrecy. Deep in coalition space, rumors began to spread. Humans were building new weapons. Human colonies were restricting access to outsiders. Human merchants were buying strange materials in massive quantities. But the strangest rumor of all came from Earth itself. Observation satellites reported that Luna had vanished from all electromagnetic spectrums. It was still there physically. The tides continued normally. But it had become invisible to every form of scanning. The moon had gone quiet. And in the darkness, something terrible was being born. Commander Thexnall studied the tactical display in his command center aboard the Blood of Empire. 3 weeks had passed since the destruction of the human medical ship. 3 weeks of easy victories against coalition forces. The enemy seemed different now. Less organized. The Zephyrians fought with desperate anger instead of their usual cold precision. The Kalari drones moved erratically, as if their hive mind was distracted. Most strange of all, human forces had become rare in battle. Where are the human fleets? Thexnall asked his intelligence officer. Unknown, sir. Long-range sensors show most human ships have withdrawn to their core systems. They appear to be regrouping. Thexnall laughed. Cowards. Destroying their precious hospital ship broke their spirit. But privately he felt uneasy. Humans were many things, but cowards was not one of them. They fought bravely, even when losing. This withdrawal was unlike them. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving strange reports from our scouts near Sol system. What kind of reports? They claim Earth's moon has disappeared from their sensors. Thexnall turned sharply. Disappeared? That's impossible. The moon is still there physically, sir. Gravitational effects continue normally, but it shows up as empty space on all scanning equipment. No electromagnetic signatures, no heat, no reflected light. It's like looking at a hole in space. Scanner malfunction, Thexnall dismissed. Have them run full diagnostics. Already done, sir. All equipment checks out. Other ships report the same thing. Thexnall felt a cold touch of worry. What are the humans doing there? Unknown, sir. All communication from Luna ceased 3 weeks ago. The same day we destroyed their medical ship. The timing was too convenient to be coincidence. Something was happening on Earth's moon. Something the humans wanted to keep secret. Double our intelligence efforts, Thexnall ordered. I want to know what the humans are planning. Over the following days, disturbing reports reached Vorac Command. Human colonies had stopped all non-essential communication. Human merchants were refusing trade with other species. Most alarming, human medical ships had vanished from throughout coalition space. They've abandoned their wounded allies. Thexnall's aide reported. No human medical vessels are operating in any war zone. This should have pleased Thexnall. Without human doctors, coalition casualties would be much higher. But it worried him instead. Humans never abandoned wounded, not even enemy wounded. It went against everything they believed. Sir, his sensor officer called urgently. We're detecting unusual energy readings from the Tau Ceti system. What kind of readings? Unknown, sir. The energy signatures don't match any known technology. They're geometric somehow. Like space itself is being folded. Thexnall moved to the sensor station. On the screen, colored lines twisted in impossible patterns. The readings showed energy levels that should have been lethal to any ship nearby. But his scouts reported no visible source for the energy. Are there human ships in that system? Negative, sir. System appears empty, but the energy readings are definitely artificial. Keep monitoring. Alert me if anything changes. But things were changing everywhere. Over the next week, Vorac scouts reported similar energy readings from a dozen human systems. Always the same twisted patterns. always invisible to normal sensors, always accompanied by complete communication silence. They're testing something, Thexanol's science officer reported. Some kind of new technology. The energy patterns suggest manipulation of space-time itself. Impossible. No species has that capability. Sir, with respect, humans have surprised us before. Remember when they first appeared in the galaxy? Everyone thought they were primitives. Then they revealed medical technologies that surpassed our own. Thexanol remembered. Human medicine had revolutionized galactic warfare. Before humans arrived, wounded soldiers died or lived as cripples. Human doctors changed that. They could heal injuries that had been permanent for millions of years. What if they've been working on other technologies? The science officer continued. Technologies they kept secret? Why would they keep healing technologies secret? Thexanol asked. Not healing technologies, sir, weapons. The word hung in the air like a curse. Thexanol had never thought of humans as weapons builders. They were healers, protectors. They followed rules and showed mercy to everyone, but he had fired on their medical ship. He had killed their doctors and nurses. He had shown them that mercy was weakness. Sir, the communications officer called out. Priority transmission from Vorac Prime. The Homeworld Council demands an immediate report. Thexanol accepted the transmission. The screen showed the 5 members of the Homeworld Council, the ruling body of the Vorac Empire. Their gray faces looked stern in the red light of the council chamber. Commander Thexanol, the chief counselor, spoke. We have received disturbing intelligence reports. Is it true that you destroyed a coalition medical vessel? Yes, counselor. The ship was carrying enemy wounded. It was a legitimate military target. Medical ships have been protected by galactic law for centuries, another counselor said. Even we have never violated medical neutrality. The humans heal our enemies, Thexanol replied. They patch them up and send them back to fight us. I eliminated a strategic asset. And what has been the result? The chief counselor asked. Thexanol hesitated. The humans have withdrawn most of their forces. They appear to be regrouping. They have gone silent, the counselor corrected. Their moon has vanished from sensors. Their colonies have cut communication. Their medical ships have disappeared. Tell me, Commander, what do you think they are doing in that silence? Preparing to surrender? Thexanol suggested hopefully. Or preparing for war, the counselor replied coldly. The kind of war they have never fought before. The transmission ended, leaving Thexanol alone with his thoughts. Outside his ship, the stars looked the same as always. But something had changed. The galaxy felt different, quieter, like the moment before a storm breaks. Sir? His aide approached carefully. Our spies in Coalition space report something strange. Other species are asking what humanity is planning. The Zephyrians seem genuinely frightened. The Kalari Queen has sealed her homeworld. Frightened of what? Of humans, sir. They keep saying the same thing. The humans have gone quiet. That's not normal. Humans are never quiet. Thexanol laughed, but the sound was forced. They fear human silence? How weak these coalition species are. But deep down he was beginning to understand their fear. Humans were emotional creatures. They talked constantly. They made speeches about justice and mercy and protecting the innocent. When something upset them, they protested loudly. This time they had said nothing. Sir, the sensor officer called. We're receiving reports from our forward scouts. Something is approaching from human space. What kind of something? Unknown, sir. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. But it's big. Very big. Thexanol moved to the main display. At the edge of sensor range, something was moving toward Vorac space. The energy readings were massive, but the object itself was invisible. How many ships? He asked. We're not sure it's ships, sir. The energy pattern is continuous. Like one enormous object, size estimate, approximately 50 kilometers across. Thexanol stared at the display. Nothing that large could travel through space. The energy requirements would be impossible. Even Vorac dreadnoughts were only a few kilometers long. Transmission incoming, the communications officer announced. It's on all frequencies. Every ship in the system is receiving it. Put it through. The screen changed to show a human admiral. He was older with gray hair and calm eyes. His uniform was simple, unmarked by battle decorations. He looked like a grandfather, not a warrior. This is Admiral Rodriguez of the Human Expeditionary Fleet, the man said calmly. We are approaching Vorac space to deliver a message. Thexanol activated his transmitter. Human Admiral, you are entering restricted space. Turn back immediately or be destroyed. Admiral Rodriguez smiled slightly. Commander Thexnell, I presume. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. I think you do. 3 weeks ago, you fired on the hospital ship Mercy's Light. You killed nearly 3,000 medical personnel and patients. You violated the most basic law of civilized warfare. I destroyed a military target, Thexnell replied. You fired on the Red Cross, Rodriguez said simply. That changes everything. The transmission ended. On the sensor display, the massive energy signature continued approaching. Whatever the humans had built, it was moving directly toward Vorac Prime. Thexnell felt real fear for the first time in his life. The humans had been quiet for 3 weeks. Their moon had gone dark. Their colonies had sealed themselves off. Now they were coming. And he had no idea what they were bringing with them. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Retribution as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Around him, his officers worked with quiet efficiency. No one spoke unless necessary. The silence that had gripped humanity for 3 weeks continued even here. Sensor report, Rodriguez ordered. Vorac Prime system ahead, sir. 47 enemy vessels detected. They're forming a defensive line around their homeworld. Rodriguez nodded. Through the main viewport, he could see Vorac Prime in the distance. It was a harsh world of red stone and gray oceans, home to 6 billion Vorac citizens and the heart of their empire. Any response to our arrival? He asked. Multiple hails, sir. Demands to know our intentions. Threats if we don't withdraw. And their moon? Keitha Station confirmed, sir. Military installation with approximately 50 million inhabitants. Heavy defensive systems. Rodriguez walked to the command chair. For 3 weeks, he had prepared for this moment. The Luna project had worked perfectly. Reality-bending technology that existed nowhere else in the galaxy was now at his disposal. Open a channel to all ships in the system, he ordered. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, sir. All Vorac vessels are receiving. Rodriguez took a breath. What he was about to say would change the galaxy forever. Citizens of the Vorac Empire. Military commanders, civilians, all who can hear this transmission. I am Admiral Marcus Rodriguez of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. For 347 years, humanity has honored the Red Cross. We have healed your wounded, protected your civilians, and shown mercy to your prisoners. We have followed the laws of war even when our enemies did not. 3 weeks ago, that symbol was fired upon. On the screen, Rodriguez could see Vorac ships moving into attack positions. Let them come. They had no idea what they were facing. Commander Thexnell of the Blood of Empire made a choice, Rodriguez continued. He chose to destroy a medical vessel. He chose to murder doctors and nurses. He chose to kill wounded soldiers who could not defend themselves. Today you learn what we chose not to become. Rodriguez gestured to his weapons officer. Execute Operation Nightfall. Space around Vorac Prime began to change. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist. The human ships disappeared from normal sensors, phasing into pocket dimensions that Earth's scientists had spent decades perfecting. But the real target was not the ships. It was Keitha Station. The moon of Vorac Prime. Target locked, sir, the weapons officer reported. Luna project technology fully charged. Fire. Invisible beams reached out from the human fleet. Not weapons in any traditional sense, but something far more terrifying. Reality manipulation technology that folded space and time like paper. The effect was immediate. Keitha Station began to fade from normal space. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply an elsewhere. My God, whispered the Vorac communications officer aboard the Blood of Empire. Their moon is disappearing. Commander Thexnell stared at the main screen in horror. Keitha Station was becoming transparent like a ghost. He could see through it to the stars beyond. 50 million of his people lived on that station. The Empire's main military command center was there. What are they doing? He demanded. Unknown, sir. Energy readings are impossible. They're manipulating space-time itself. On every ship in the system, Vorac warriors watched in stunned silence as their moon faded away. It didn't explode. It didn't break apart. It simply ceased to exist in normal space. Admiral Rodriguez's voice echoed across all frequencies. Your moon still exists. Every person aboard is unharmed. They are simply elsewhere now. Trapped in a pocket dimension outside normal space-time. Thexnell tried to hail the station. Nothing. No response on any frequency. Sensors showed empty space where Ketha Station had been moments before. The station will be returned when this war ends, Rodriguez continued. When reparations are paid for the Mercy's light, when those responsible for firing on medical personnel face justice. Impossible, Thexnol whispered. No species has this technology. Until today, Rodriguez replied, somehow hearing him across the comm channels. This is the Red Cross doctrine, Commander. We will heal your wounded and show mercy to your defeated. But fire upon our healers and you will discover what we are capable of when we choose not to be merciful. The Vorac fleet began to break formation. Ships that had been preparing to attack suddenly pulled back. Warriors who had never known fear were experiencing it for the first time. Sir, Thexnol's communications officer said with a shaking voice, we're receiving surrender requests from 12 vessels. They want to know the terms. Thexnol couldn't speak. His mouth was dry. His hands trembled. He had made the greatest mistake in Vorac history. He had thought humans were weak because they showed mercy. He had never considered that mercy might be a choice. Admiral Rodriguez's image appeared on every screen in the system. The elderly human looked tired but determined. I want to be very clear about something. Humanity did not develop this technology for war. We created it to help terraform dangerous worlds, to save lives in impossible situations, to build rather than destroy. But you fired on the Red Cross. He paused, letting that sink in. For centuries, other species have seen our compassion as weakness, our medical missions as naive idealism, our refusal to use certain weapons as technological inferiority. You were wrong about all of it. We have been capable of ending civilizations for generations. We chose not to. We chose to heal instead of harm. We chose to build instead of destroy. We chose mercy over power. But mercy only works when both sides choose it. Thexnol finally found his voice. What do you want? Immediate cessation of hostilities. Withdrawal of all Vorac forces from Coalition space. Full reparations for the Mercy's Light and her crew. And you, Commander, will be handed over to face trial. And if I refuse? Rodriguez smiled sadly. Then we demonstrate what else we learned to do during our quiet time. New energy readings appeared on sensors throughout the system. More reality manipulation technology, but different this time. Space around several Vorac ships began to distort. We can make individual ships disappear, Rodriguez explained. We can fold entire fleets into pocket dimensions. We can isolate planets from the rest of the universe. We can stop time in localized areas. We can do things that would terrify every species in the galaxy. He leaned forward. But we prefer to heal. So I'm offering you a choice. Surrender now and your people live. Continue this war and learn why humanity tried so hard to be better than our nature. The Vorac fleet was in chaos. Ships were signaling surrender faster than communications officers could process. The Empire's most hardened warriors were begging for terms, sir. Thexnol's aide whispered. Orders from Vorac Prime. The Homeworld Council is authorizing immediate surrender. Thexnol closed his eyes. His career was over. His life was probably over. But his people would live. Signal surrender to the human fleet, he ordered quietly. Rodriguez nodded when the message came through. Surrender accepted. Stand down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Commander Thexnol, you will transfer to human custody within the hour. As Vorac ships powered down their weapons, Rodriguez turned to his communications officer. Send a message to all coalition forces. The war is over. Medical operations can resume, sir, his aide asked quietly. What happens to Commander Thexnol? He will face trial for war crimes, but not execution. He will serve aboard human medical ships for the rest of his natural life. He will see every day what he nearly destroyed. Rodriguez looked out at the stars where Ketha Station had been, and maybe eventually, he will understand why the Red Cross is sacred. 6 months later, Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the deck of a new hospital ship. The Mercy Renewed was larger than her old ship, better equipped, and carried the most advanced medical technology in the galaxy. She watched as a tall figure in gray scrubs approached. Commander Thexnol looked different now. His red eyes held sadness instead of anger. His proud bearing had been replaced by humility. Doctor, he said quietly, the Kalari patient in bed 47 is requesting pain medication. Thank you, Sarah replied. Please prepare a standard dose. Thexnol nodded and moved away. He had been working aboard human medical ships for 6 months now. At first, he had been sullen and resentful. But gradually he began to understand what he had almost destroyed. Every day he watched human doctors save lives. He saw them treat enemies with the same care as friends. He witnessed the Red Cross in action, protecting the wounded and defenseless. Dr. Chen, a young nurse, approached. The new patients from the Rigel engagement are ready for surgery. On my way, Sarah replied. She looked once more at the Red Cross painted on the ship's hull. The symbol that had been fired upon. The symbol that had nearly died, but it lived on. And now the galaxy understood why. The Red Cross was not a sign of weakness. It was a promise to heal, to protect, to show mercy even to enemies, and a warning of what happened when that mercy was rejected. As the Mercy Renewed moved toward its next mission, Earth's moon remained visible in distant space. Luna was no longer dark and silent. The reality manipulation facilities had been moved deeper underground, invisible but always ready. Humanity had shown the galaxy what they were capable of when pushed too far. Now they hoped never to show it again.